Hi, my name is Roy Canterbury. I'm going to be hosting on Arch Talk 101, and we have James on the show with us today. We're going to talk archery today and see what's going on in his world and in archery, and we'll kind of take it from there, and we'll have some fun talking. Welcome to the show, James.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Can you introduce yourself and tell us a little something about yourself?
So I'm James Waldron. I'm from Michigan, and I've been shooting archery for about 8 years and competitively for about four.
Like, what decides you get into archery?
So when I was younger, my dad would always go out hunting and archery hunt, and I'd always thought that'd be super fun. And he set me up a little bow. I think it came from Walmart. That we just had. He screwed a little sight on there for me. I had a couple arrows, a little wrist strap, and I'd just go outside and shoot for hours. And then we'd go up to our local club and sport shop, and they kept telling us about this league that they would do. So we're like, well, we'll go try that. And we went and tried it, and we really enjoyed it. Me and my dad did. And so finally, we went and he set me up a better bow that he had when he was younger. It was an old Browning, and I shot that bow for a long time, just shooting just local stuff around our house. And at about 2020, we went and bought a diamond edge for me and set that up with an actual D loop, nice sight, nice arrows. And we went out and shot our first ASA state championship. And I actually won that year. And
Cool.
it made me hungry for more. And it just snowballed from there.
Yeah, that Diamond Edge is a real good starter bow
It
for
is.
most people because it's so adjustable.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed shooting, and I shot it for a couple years.
What are you shooting now?
Currently shooting the Matthews Title 38.
One of the newer ones.
Yeah, I really enjoy shooting that bow.
Yeah, there's so many new models out there. It's hard to keep track of who's
It
got what
is.
out there, and so many bow companies that it's not like when I was younger when you didn't have much choice. You had maybe a half a dozen different bow companies, and that was about it. And well, when I first started, there was no compound, so it
Yep.
was recurve longbows. So but I started in the 60s before compounds started showing up. But it's nice, how far they've come. That Diamond Edge was a real good one. I worked
Yep.
at Bass Pro and Cabela's both, and that was a real popular one for getting kids started because it was so adjustable.
Yeah, I shot it for a long time, and when we actually started in like to go in the national shoots, we decided to upgrade a little bit, and we went to our shop, and I don't know, I shot Bowtech, Prime, a whole bunch of different ones, and I just fell in love with the TRX 34, and I ordered one, and I shot that for a year, and it was at the end of COVID there, kind of, and
Yeah.
it took a while to get. And by the time I got it, I'd already outgrown the mods. And
Oh,
we were just kind of looking on Facebook one day, and we saw someone looking to trade a TRX 38. So we hopped on that, and we went, and he won. So we wanted to trade a TRX 38 for a 34. So it all worked out perfectly. And I got a TRX at that point, and or
well,
30.
that's kind of nice. It's kind of bad that it took so long to get the bow in because of all the other crap going on.
Yep.
But it was nice that you was able to trade it for something you could use
Yeah, it
and
was.
they could use it, and it sounded like a really good trade
Yep, it
and
was.
win-win for both of you.
Yep.
So you're competing now. Do you compete in 3Ds or target or what's
So
you competing in?
Yep. So I compete in 3D, outdoor target, and indoor target.
My headphones are connected to my phone and it rang and so I missed a couple seconds there.
So
So, see,
I've been competing in 3D, indoor target, and outdoor target. And 3D is one of my favorites. We shoot a lot of ASA, and
yeah.
we started getting into IBO this year. Then this spring I went to my first IBO, the IBO Spring Nationals, and took third, and I really enjoyed it. So this past weekend we decided to go to IBO Worlds, and I ended up taking second.
Oh, cool. Now,
And
for some of our listeners don't know what the difference between IBO and ASA. What is the difference between those two events?
so ASA is there's known and unknown classes. Like you can have your rangefinder in ASA, and then there's the pro classes and amateur classes and everything. And then in IBO, it's all unknown. So there is no known classes. So and they still have the pro classes, semi-pro classes, and amateur classes, but it's the unknown pretty much. And then for IBO, there's the center 11, 10, 8, 5. And for ASA, there's the 12, 10, 8, 5.
A little different in scoring and the fact that, ASA, you have some shoots are going to be known yardages.
Yep.
I like the unknown because, being a bow hunter, I don't always know the yardage.
Yeah,
A
they're both a lot of
couple of
fun.
years ago, I finally got a rangefinder so I can range it. But before it's just step it off and then,
Yep.
get readjudge the yardage. And, you don't need a rangefinder if you learn how to judge yardage.
Yep.
So that's always interesting. I bet you've got some kind of interesting stories of some of the tournaments you've been in. Tell us
Yeah.
about tell us about the last one you was at.
So the last one, we were actually gone for 2 weeks for the last tournament. We left and went to the ASA Classic in Coleman, Alabama, and we left straight from there to IBO uh, Worlds. And when we got to IBO Worlds, the Airbnb we were staying at the first night didn't have water.
Oh no.
So that was fun, but we got that fixed and all worked out. So we had water, and we started the tournament on Thursday, the first scoring, and on there was it was raining all day, and on Friday they ended up canceling it for the second day of scoring because of a bad storm that was coming through. So we picked it back up on Saturday.
It's nice that he's able, stop it during the big storm because
Yeah, it
that's no
was.
fun to shoot in, is it?
Yeah, it was. No, it's not. It was pretty nasty on Friday.
Yeah, that makes for not as much fun, but if everybody's shooting in it, it's still fair, you
Yup.
know. I was listening to an Audible book one time, and this guy was talking about how he was in he shot, yeah, rifles, and there was going up, and one day the snow was blowing and everything else. You couldn't see your targets. And the guy next to him was shooting, hitting the targets, and it's like he's trying to figure out, okay, how is he seeing them? So then he noticed that, oh, there's a little bit of break once in a while. You can see your target. So kind of wait for that break, and then that's when you shoot. And it's challenging when you have adverse conditions like that. But
It is.
so, what's the worst in conditions that you've had to shoot in?
The worst conditions that I've had to shoot in. I've never really had a shoot. I guess it would have been a couple years ago. We shot an ASA state qualifier, and it was really downpouring. And I think that might be the worst conditions I've ever had to shoot in, besides, because I mean, when it's raining at tournaments, it's normally just, it's not downpouring very hard.
Just a light rain, but this one was downpouring on you.
Yeah, yep,
Yeah, it makes your glasses get all wet. You can't see through your peep. It
yep.
gets your arrows wet. So you get water flying. Well, of course, you're already wet anyway. Water flying, and those would still shoot feathers. That's old style ones. They kind of disappear, but hey, there's some stuff to keep them dry. But everything else is wet and the ground's slick. And
Yep.
what's been the most challenging shoot you've been at?
The most challenging shoot I've been at was probably Colorado a couple it would have been 2 years ago. We went out and shot the S3A Western 3D Nationals. And I never shot in that much elevation before because it was up in the mountain. And
Oh yeah.
there was a couple shots you were shooting straight up the mountain and straight down the mountain. And that was probably the toughest shoot I've ever shot or conditions I've ever.
Yeah, that is challenge. Shooting up or downhill, even if you're not in the mountains, is a
Yep,
challenge. You
it
know, I
is.
don't know how to judge yardage going up and downhill, and it's different. And then up in the altitude,
Yeah. Yeah, it's a
you know,
lot different.
you act different, your arrows act different because the air is thinner. You know,
Yep.
so your pins now, if you set them down here, you know, in lower altitudes, go in the higher altitudes, you know, your pins could be off.
Yeah. And
You know,
that it
I've
was
never tried it, but you know, I would think because the air is a little thinner, a little less resistance.
Yeah, it was definitely different from shooting just on flat ground from going out and shooting straight uphill or straight downhill, or I guess in that case it was straight up a mountain or straight down a mountain.
Yeah, yeah, and those can be pretty steep.
Yeah.
Now, how did you compensate for that shooting up and downhill?
Mostly just trying making sure and remembering to move in my hips and not my arms, and that helped a lot. Just remembering to move in my hips.
Yeah, you know, that's the thing that a lot of, you know, may or may not understand that your form standing straight is your form standing straight, but you
Yeah.
can move your hips, bend at your hips, but you can't drop your arms because that changes everything.
Yup.
And that's the hardest part when you're standing on the hill. It's kind of off centered and yeah. So whenever I do that, I draw straight. If I'm in a tree stand, I draw straight and then dip down to get to my
Yup.
target. And
That's
I did one time before I knew I dropped my arms like I can't see through my peep. Well, because it completely changed and it I
yup.
couldn't see through it no more. And yeah, you don't make good shots that way.
Exactly.
So what's been your most memorable shoot you've been on?
The most memorable shoot I've been on. That's a tough one. A lot of them are. So probably my most memorable shoot was NFAA Indoor Nationals last year. I shot my first 300 on an indoor face after dealing with target panic all that before that, and I ended up winning, and that was really cool. But I think the coolest part about it was is my dad doesn't get to go to too many shoots with us, and he got to go to that one.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, he kind of got you into it and got you to see your first 300.
Yep.
Yeah, I know when I was, you know, doing this a little bit younger, you know, 300s were unheard of. Yeah, you're winning tournaments at 295, 298. You know, once in a while you might get somebody 299. Now, pretty much if you don't shoot a 300, you're not even in the close to being in the running. And
Yeah.
it's amazing how all the skill levels increased. It,
Yeah, it is.
and a lot of the techniques have changed too, you know, on how we shoot. I know when I was younger, they teach on recurves, just get your anchor point, just open your fingers. Well, that's not consistent. Now they teach, you know, following through and same thing on compounds, you know, following through instead of just cramming on the triggers. And, uh, you know, it's the techniques is really changed. And the
Yeah.
equipment's gotten a little better too, a little more
Yeah.
consistent. You know, pretty much the new bows, if you shoot them the same every time, they're going to hit in the same spot every time. Yeah, minus having bent arrows. But
Yeah.
so, do you do any hunting then as well,
Yes,
or
I do. I do some turkey hunting and then deer hunting. And the last couple years I've actually went bear hunting.
oh, they're hunting with a bow?
No, it was
Oh,
with a gun. I wanted to go I wanted to try it with my bow, but it was my first time last year was my first time going, and I didn't know how things were gonna work on or anything. And we were sitting in a tree stand with a gun over a crop damage permit sitting over the cornfield. And we didn't know how it was gonna be, so I went with a gun. And then we ended up the guy called that we were going with or whatever. And he called and says, because he ran dogs too. And he
Yeah.
called and said, "Can you be up here tomorrow morning? We got a spot opened up to run dogs." And we ended up running dogs. And I got a bear that way with the dogs.
Oh, hey, you got a bear.
Yeah. And I got another tag this year that we're gonna go with. And I'm gonna try going with my bow.
It'd be different.
Yeah.
Hey, you got out there and do a bear hunt. Not
Yeah.
many of us get to go on bear hunts.
I was just excited there was it was a bear hunt, something a little different from deer and turkey. It was, and it's always been a dream to shoot a bear and an elk. And
Well, and each one has its own, own advantages and um, everything else. So what rifle do you use when you catch a bear?
the 450
Uh,
Bushmaster.
that's a pretty good size caliber. A
Yeah.
little bit of a kick.
It's not too bad, but
I haven't shot one of those yet, but I normally with an ot six is what I normally use. I went up in
that's a
Canada
good
moose
gun.
hunting. And that's what I shot my moose with was an ot six.
That's cool.
And when I do use it for deer, that's what I use for deer. Same one. Yeah, nice scope on it. Way you go. But I kind of do like, the archery hunts. And so do you for turkeys, do you do shotgun or just bow or both?
So I've never killed a turkey with my bow, but I've tried the last 3 years trying to shoot one with my bow. And it's just I actually haven't killed one. I shot a bird this year, and it was actually my first bird turkey I'd shot in 2 years because I'd been trying so hard with my bow and I'd never gotten the opportunity. And this year I'd hunted with my bow all season. And on the final night that we were able to hunt, because we were going to leave for London, Kentucky the next morning,
Yeah.
I hung my bow back up and grabbed the shotgun. It's like I'm just gonna try it, and we went out there and we ended up stalking a bird, and then I was able to get it. So,
Hey, you got a turkey though.
yep, I was just super excited because it was the first turkey I'd shot in a couple years, and it was
Yeah, when you hunt them for a while, it takes, it's kind of nice to be able to get one, whether it's bow or shotgun or whatever. And
yeah,
so how's the deer hunting going on?
it's been going pretty good the last couple years. I've shot a deer with my bow the last 4 years, and it's been pretty exciting. And then I've shot a couple does every year and then one buck. I haven't been able to shoot tag on 2 bucks yet, but still a lot
Oh,
of fun.
now in Michigan, what do they have for tags, for deer?
So you can buy one it so we have different units, and for there's different tags for different counties and stuff. But for the county that we hunt in, it you can buy a combo thing where it's 2 buck tags and a doe tag, and then you can buy just buck tags.
So they're taking more bucks than does. That keeps population up.
Yeah, and then you can go and just buy doe tags too, just single doe tags or a
Oh,
couple doe
okay.
tags that you can do that too. Should have led with that.
Yeah. Well, so you have quite a few tags that you can get then. And
Yep.
so how's the population up there where you're hunting? Is it pretty decent then, or?
Yeah, it's pretty decent. We got quite a few bucks out here up here and a lot of does. And there's some decent bucks. Well, every once in a while you'll get a really big buck, but they're normal, pretty good bucks.
Yeah, the bucks up north here. I'm in Nebraska, and where you're at in Michigan, there is we've got some good sized deer.
Yeah.
Uh, Not like the Texas ones, the little small body ones, but they have an unproportional large rack for such a small body, and
Yeah.
it's like compare them to the bucks we have up here. It's like, oh, that's still a small one.
Yeah. Yeah, I got a couple of them right here. These are a couple that my dad shot, but This these are about our average bucks.
Those are nice ones.
Yeah. And on that buck right there, that was my dad's first deer that he shot with his recurve.
Oh, okay.
And
Oh,
the cool thing about that hunt is I the morning that he shot that, I'd shot a buck about a half hour before that with my bow. And we were sitting out of the same tree.
oh, you shot one, and a little bit later he gets in the same tree and shoots another one.
Yep. We're sitting with each other and we're just sitting there, and the buck I shot, he came in and I shot him, and I want him to get down and like go find him, like go get him. But my
Yeah.
dad saw where he went down, and then he says, no, no, let's just wait. And about a half hour later, that buck walked in and he shot it with his recurve. It was his first buck with his recurve.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Well, and you need to wait anyway, and that was
Yep.
one way for him to, hold you there, and then he got a shot too. That was
Yeah.
cool. That was better
Yep.
than going down and finding your deer right away, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was because then we went and we found his deer, and because it went out in the middle of the field, and with it being his recurve, and we just wanted to make sure wasn't going to get up and run away on us.
Yeah.
So we went out and found his buck, and sure enough, it was good. So then we went back to where I shot my buck, and he made me track it all the way, and I found it. And
Was that your first time tracking a deer?
no, that it was I tracked deer before, but like by myself, like leading, it was.
It's just I remember the first one I shot and tracking it, and it was, you know, I was about 20 feet up in the tree, and to get over the bushes next to the trail was about 40-yard shot. And then there's a big old tall grass field, and it run through there. And when I shot, the deer turned, and arrow was hanging way out, and and guy I was with, he went and he found it because well, I found it. It's like I'm still going to track it. I want to learn how to track. We know we're going to we know where the deer's at. I wanted to track it because I'd never tracked one before. So you
Yeah.
learn, and then you get more and more, and then you get the ones that's dropping little bitty little drops, about the size of a head of a pin. You're finding them, and some of those like you just can't find because it wasn't good enough hit.
Yeah.
I like the ones where the blood trail is so good that a month later you can still see the blood trail.
Yeah.
I've had a few of those. So tell us about some of the other hunts you've been on, maybe one that's been challenging or memorable that you've been on.
Uh, one of my so the first buck I shot with my bow, I came home from school on a Friday night, and I'd been hunting all season. I think it was October. I don't remember. I think it was like October 24th, 27th, maybe. And I came home from school, and Dad came home from work, and it was it was a beautiful night. I was like, "Can we go out hunting?" He's like, "Yeah." So we went out just behind our house. We have 10 acres at our house, and we went out and we have a stand. It's about you can see our house from it, but because we have a trail going through the woods, and we were sitting there, and it was probably about 5:30, and a doe walked in 10 yards perfect. And he was like, I never shot a deer with my bow before. So he was like, well, shoot that. And then I was getting ready to draw back, and we saw a 6 point coming in. So I was like, well, wait, wait. And we're waiting for that. And then all of a sudden, we just saw white horns coming in. And I said, Dad, Dad, like I'm shaking, breathing heavy, like, and I'm like, look at that. And so we wait, and he comes like he's coming right towards us, perfect. And then all of a sudden, the doe that we're watching like turns around and starts going behind us, kind of. And the buck follows her. And my dad grunts, nothing. He grunts again, and nothing still. So finally, he yells, and he whispers the yardage in my ear real quick, and I shoot, and you can just see my arrow hit, and he kicks and takes off running. And I called my mom, and we went up to the house and ate dinner and went back out, and the blood trails like we were talking about earlier was just huge. There was blood everywhere, and he went about 80 yards, and we dragged him up to closer to where I shot him out of the woods. into one of our food plots, and I started to gut him, but my arrow broke off. It went in about this far and broke off.
Oh,
I My dad was worried about me cutting myself gutting it. So I mean he was helping me, of course, but so he started to gut it, and he pulled the heart out, and my arrow was right in the heart.
oh,
It was super cool. First buck with a bow, and I it was a really memorable hunt for me.
yeah, that is nice when you get somebody you think you're gonna get a doe and then buck comes in and get a nice big buck for your first one. And I bet you were hooked then, weren't you?
Yeah, I was, and it was only a 7 point, but it was a decent sized 7 point. And I thought we were just gonna he was just gonna do a European mount for me. And he went and like gave it to a taxidermist to get done and take the hide and stuff. And it was like 4 or 5 months later, and I kept like, what was he do? What's he doing to that thing? I thought he was
Yeah.
just gonna cut the hide off and do a European mount for us. And then one day it was because we were friends with the guy that was doing it, and he says, "Oh, he's having a yard sale. We're gonna go look at it, whatever." And they came back and he said, "We bought you something. It's in the back of the car." And I went out, opened the back of the car, and they got me a shoulder mount for it.
Oh, that was cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a little bit better than some of the, just the skull and antlers,
yeah,
those okay, but the full mounts, the full,
really cool.
shoulder
Yeah.
mounts are really cool because then you get to see, everything on there, and those are cool. I've got a few of those. Yeah, that is nice, memorable one. So what's been kind of your most challenging hunt you've been on?
My most challenging hunt was probably my turkey hunt this year. So we it was kind of a last minute decision. We decided we are going to go turkey hunting that night. So we went up to our property there, my grandpa's property that he lets us hunt on. And he has a field on both sides of the road by where we are hunting. And we saw turkeys in one field, on the field on the south side of the road. So we like cut it in the to a woodsy edge right there and started get going up to them. And I think we spooked them, or we something spooked them, and they went into the woods. So we went up and we sat there for about 20 minutes just waiting, seeing if they're gonna come back out. And finally, my dad goes, "We're just sitting wasting daylight here. I doubt they're going to come back out." So we walked across the road to my grandpa's other field right there. And we're just kind of walking back, kind of calling, see if we can get anything. And all of a sudden we see turkeys, like just bodies. So me and my dad drop real quick and we're looking and we can't see anything. So we crawl over to the edge of the field and woods right there, and we start walking back a little bit more at a time, and we pull up, and sure enough with our binos, and sure enough we can look and see that there's turkeys out there. And we can see that there's two hens, and we can see like the fan of a tom, and we thought it was a jake. But so we keep walking back, and we get back a little bit farther, and we're starting to run out of brush and trees. So we're looking, and we see that they're kind of coming towards us, but very, very slowly. So we went a little bit more, and finally we're like out of brush. We're about 60 yards from them. And I have a shotgun. I'm sitting up against the log, and all of a sudden a tractor across the ditch on the other farmer's field go comes goes by the ditch. And I think that's what helped us, and it spooked them. And the two hens like started like coming right towards us, and I think they saw us and took off running. And then the tom, he wasn't running, but he was slowly walking, and I'm waiting for him to be right behind like where the hens were. And I'm waiting. It felt like forever waiting for him to come through.
It
So
does, doesn't
finally,
it?
yeah, so finally I peeked my head up over the log and around the other tree right there, and he's like starting to come in front of us, not next to us by the where the hens went. So I pull the gun over real quick, and he pokes his head off a little bit more, and I shot. He flops. He doesn't even flop. He just flops down and lays there.
Good shot.
Yeah, I was super excited for it. Just I'd hunted hard all year, and the first turkey in a couple years. It was super exciting.
So did you eat it yet?
Uh, no, we haven't yet.
Oh, have you had wild turkey?
Yeah, we used to make turkey nuggets a lot.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we they're just like chicken nuggets, but just turkey.
Yeah, the wild turkeys have a little bit different taste than the ones you
Yeah,
buy in the store.
they
There's
do.
really not a lot of the taste to the store-bought ones, but the wild ones have a little bit better taste.
Yeah,
The
we always enjoy making turkey nuggets or just turkey and
Yeah, those are always kind of nice. So yeah, that was kind of interesting. How when the farmer nicks property over, kind of helps you out, and
yeah,
yeah, we've
because
all
we
had that, where somebody out walking around chases them to you, and other times they chase them away, and last times with deer, somebody's walking, they'll run ahead and they'll turn around and look,
yeah,
just kind of turn back around and look and see what's coming, and sometimes they just turn get closer to you. I know one time I shot at a doe, and I, for some reason, I don't know how I did it, but I shot over its back and hit a tree. Now, of course, there's no way getting this arrow of the tree because it's probably about 30 or 40 feet up in the tree where I hit it because I was on top of a hill. And so it turns around and gets close to me. So now to be in like a 20-yard shot, it's a 10-yard shot. Because it heard the noise on the side, didn't hear the bow going off, it just heard the arrow hitting the tree.
yeah,
And it turns and looks, that's completely looking away from me.
yeah. We were sitting. Me and my dad were. Well, my dad he was behind me a little ways, just because we were pretty much out of brush and we didn't want to spook him.
Yeah.
And they get closer to him to get a shot. And then all of a sudden they started coming towards us. And we're like, whoa, what's going on? Then we saw a tractor and we're like, that could not have been any more perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had, people out walking around chase the deer to you earlier than what normally they would have get to you. And, sometimes moving around, they stir the deer up. The bad
Yeah.
part is when you got one walking in and they scare them off. Yeah. But hey, that's the way it goes sometimes. So what's kind of your back onto your target? What's your practice routine look like when you're getting ready for a tournament?
So when I'm getting ready for a tournament, I try shooting 100, at least 100, 150 arrows a day and try just getting in the reps with shooting the target I would be shooting. And then how it would be normally try shooting 100, 150 arrows, making sure everything's good, how I'm shooting. And then I normally try and blank bail because I struggled with target panic with so long and I still get fits of it. I try blank bailing before a tournament too. And then like the day right before the tournament, I'll normally just go out and just out 50 arrows or so just to try. So I'm not tired coming the tournament, but to make sure I'm still getting in the good reps.
Yeah, last thing you want to do is shoot a bunch the day before and have the stress with tournament, shooting all the arrows at the tournament,
Yeah.
and it's kind of nice to it lets your muscles relax a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that blank bell shooting is real nice for helping you get your technique down, and because you're not focusing on a target, and um, I use a lot of the eyes closed, not only just a blank bell, but eyes closed.
Yeah.
And then with your eyes closed, you can see what your body is doing. You know exactly what your body's doing with your eyes closed. Open them
Yep.
up, and you don't have a clue.
Exactly.
You
Yeah.
know, the hard part is feeling what your eye with your eyes open. You got to learn how to open your eyes and feel what your body's doing. So you're going through a shot, you can feel good ones and bad ones. And
Yeah. When I was going through the target panic, I'd had it pretty much covered and I was getting through it. And I had a trainer. It was just a long piece of like D-loop material that I would take with me in it, and I had one before that too, where it was like a stretch band that had a
Yeah.
D-loop on it, and I would put that in my backpack, and we were flying to a lot of tournaments that year, and we were going to the airport one time, and all of a sudden my backpack, it got checked or whatever, and my trainer, that it was considered a weapon, so they checked it over and said it was okay, but
An elastic band with a D loop on is a weapon, huh?
yeah, but
I used to, when I was doing 3Ds all the time, I used to carry a string around out of D-loop material that fit around my thumb and my draw length.
yeah,
And then I could practice my form. And if the string wasn't leaving my hand to my target, then I knew something was wrong. And then I could practice my form and get it back down. And so
yeah,
it's kind of interesting. She said you carry the same thing around. And I used to do it all the time. And it's kind of nice to have something you can train where you can practice shooting while you're watching TV.
mhm,
Practice that form. You can't shoot your bow sometimes, there because, you may not be there, but you just want to work on that upper form and release.
yeah.
So what type of release do you shoot?
I'm currently shooting a hinge.
Okay.
It's the True Ball HBC, and I really love that release. I There for a while I was shooting the True Ball HT, but
Yeah.
they quit making that a couple years ago, and I kept having problems with like I shoot so much that the spring in it kept the spring kept breaking, so I decided I would try the HBC, and I started shooting that. I was like, whoa, this is
A
this is
lot
truly
nicer.
amazing. Yeah. And it's because the HT is an aluminum release, and the HT is brass or steel, or and it's I really enjoy it shooting that release. It's
Yeah, the release can make a lot of difference.
Yeah,
I tell a lot of beginners, like, okay, buy a cheap bow, buy some cheap arrows, but spend your money on a release because that's your trigger.
yeah,
Um, I was helping out with an event teaching ladies archery, and the releases they had there with their bows, they got the Genesis bows because they do a lot of the uh, NASP and stuff in there.
yeah,
Um, but that release was so bad, you could not fire with proper back tension because the travel on it was like a quarter of an inch or better. You can't take that pressure out of it and use it correctly. So, we just had to like pull the trigger because you can't do it any other way. But then you get a good quality trigger and it doesn't move. I have a Scott that I use, a wrist strap. It's real. It's probably 30 years old now, but it still works. That's what I use when it gets really cold because, well, in wintertime, you need a glove on that hand.
yeah,
And with that one, I only need just the index finger out, so I can kind of keep it warm. But I normally use a Carter Chocolate Addiction, which is handheld. I normally use that one, and that one is really nice because I put the hardest spring in you can, and there's almost no travel at all in it. It's like you can't even perceive the travel; it just goes off, and that's nice because as soon as you feel that trigger moving, you start thinking about the trigger moving. And while
exactly.
you're
Yeah,
thinking about the trigger moving, what are you not doing? Aiming, So
yeah,
there's a lot of things we can do on a release, and you've probably run into several problems, having a target panic, and um, you know, my analysis and looking at what target panic is, when if you're watching the pin, you see it hit the target and your mind says pull the trigger, and then your finger starts moving and then the pin moves off a target and you must, oh no, don't shoot. That's target panic. you, you
yeah,
know so it's kind of the focus. You focus on the target, let the pin float. But that's kind of hard because we're so ingrained on you. Like when you're shooting guns, you focus, you want to look at the front sight and stuff. On a bow, you don't really want to look at the sight. Um, you just got to cover up your target, and there's a lot to that. And get in there, especially if you don't have that trigger far enough back in your finger, so you want to pull the trigger. There's just so many things that can introduce that target panic, and once you get it, it's tough to get rid of it. Some
Yeah.
people have to actually stop shooting for a while.
Yeah, when I was going through it, I was going back and forth between four different releases.
Oh,
Because I mean, I was just trying to find one that I enjoyed to shoot and I could break a good shot with and not have to. And I mean, I started off with the B3 Ghost, and I thought when I shot it, I thought I liked it and enjoyed it. And I started off shooting it, and I shot it well, and I enjoyed shooting it. And then I couldn't, I didn't enjoy shooting it anymore. It was just I don't. It's a lighter release, and I don't know if that had something to do with it because I'm used to a heavy release.
now is that heavier trigger pull or
No, it just like the
just
whole release
physical weight?
itself. Yeah, physical weight. And I put that up and went back to my True Fire Seer that I was shooting. And I shot that for a little while. And then my coach Glenn Bennett me with the True Ball HT. He says, I want you to try this. I shot it a couple times. I'm like, how much do you want for this? I love that release. And it's still one of my favorite releases today. And so finally or I was at a shooting it and the spring broke on me and I in the tournament and I didn't shoot very well. And it was at a club that had like the boards that like the club members are selling stuff at. And I was going to the bathroom and I was kind of looking at the board and I saw someone had one for sale. So I gave him a call and he met me at the club and sold it to me. So I got a backup release and sent my other one in to be fixed. And then I kept having it break on me a little bit. So that's when I tried the HBC and
Yeah, it's kind of bad when you have a release, you have to have a backup because you're always sending one in to get fixed, And if somebody that's not shooting very much, it'd probably be just fine for them. That, like when you say you're out shooting 100, 150 arrows in practice, that's a lot of activations of that release. And what kind of draw weight are you shooting?
right now I'm shooting, I think it's about 14-pound draw weight or 14-pound holding weight. I'm
Or
shooting
okay, I was
I'm
gonna say,
shooting
wait a
50
minute.
I'm shooting a 50-pound draw weight on my target bows, and then I got a 60
Okay,
pound draw weight on my hunting bow.
okay, that makes more sense. Like
Yeah.
14 pound. No, wait a minute. That's a kid's weight, holding
Sorry.
weight.
Sorry. My my mind went elsewhere.
Yeah,
But yeah, and one of the benefits of having a backup release is my coach, he wanted me to try like have one set hotter and one set colder. So then
right.
that's another reason why I have is I'll go back and forth between them just to keep my mind fresh or just to make sure that I'm still breaking good shots, whether it's hot or cold.
Yeah, I know my son's release. He's got a Carter as well. Different model for you which one his model is, but he has the lighter spring in it. And I'm so used to mine, I bury my trigger. I don't have a knurl knob. I took it off because it's just in my way. Because I don't use my thumb on that thumb release because you don't. That's even harder than using the index finger to pull it. So I bury it into my hand, clear into the webbing between my thumb and index finger. I bury it clear back into there, and so now I've got a fist. Now, if I wanted to force fire, I just tighten my hand up. If I have to do it, I can just tighten my hand up and it'll fire. But that way I have a little pressure. I can put pressure on. I put my thumb pressure on the release, and now I can pull through. Um, and on his, it's so light. As soon as I start putting pressure on it, goes off. For me, it's just too light for me to shoot. I need something a little heavier because my style of release, and I put a little more pressure on it, and so then I go through and I can pull through. But all what you get used to, right?
Yeah.
I've heard of guys have, two, three releases, the identical releases in their quiver, and one set did not go off at all.
Yeah.
So they can go there and then it's like, okay, they can see, okay, I'm jerking this. I'm expecting to go off, as I expect it to go off, and then you can eliminate that. And those was the shoot, handguns especially, you can tell somebody that's anticipating the shot, when you get to the end, like especially on a revolver, because you don't really you can't tell when it's empty unless you're counting shots, and
Yeah.
I don't count shots. And you're shooting like if you had like a 44 mag, and that cylinder goes off, doesn't do anything, your hand doesn't move. Now you're not jerking your shots. And the same thing with a bow. If you have that release that does not go off, uh, then you can tell if you're pulling on that trigger expecting it to go off, and you
Yeah.
should never know when it goes off.
Yeah. Last year I was out helping my dad in the garage and I cut my finger right there.
Oh yeah,
And
that is
it was on a Sunday and we are leaving for a tournament Tuesday. And that right there, that's right where I put my
yeah.
release. I draw back. And I tried shooting a thumb button, so I wasn't doing so much pushing and pulling. And then I tried shooting a finger trigger. And the one time I shot the finger trigger, I shot and I jerked so bad I just about missed the whole bill completely.
Oh, geez. Yeah, that
And
is pretty bad when you cut your finger right where that trigger is supposed to go, right at that first joint there from your knock, from your hand.
yeah, so I ended up learning to just put it up higher and I it worked. So that's all that matters.
Yeah, well, you have to adjust, for your body. It's a little bit different,
Yeah.
and I had one guy I was helping out, and the hand holding the bow, he had a physical problem. He couldn't get the hand in the correct position to be, what we normally teach, because his hand just wouldn't go there. So we had to, modify a little bit, and that's where we teach. Basically, most would teach back tension, teach basically the same thing,
Yeah.
but we have to modify it. I always teach a little bit of bend it, don't lock the arm out, because once you lock the arm out, you engage the shoulder tendons out of the socket. So now then you're going to have shoulder problems. You got to drop that down. Well, I had one guy I was teaching, he had MS, so he could not have that arm bent because he just couldn't hold it. So we had to lock it out. So we had to change things around so that we can accommodate and make sure that he could shoot his bow. And he went out the next year after he taught it, went out and shot a deer. And he's just, he was sitting in the back of his truck and it pretty much come up and started sniffing his boot. That's how close the deer got to him when he shot it. It's just right out there. Yeah, they'll come up to you. I remember one time I was hunting this place and we're crossing the tracks. We had the farmer owned land on both sides of the railroad tracks, and we had permission to hunt on the other side, but we'd parked by a little pond he had there. So I'm watching my truck because I can see it from my tree stand, and I'm watching deer walk within 5 feet of the back of my truck. You know, it wasn't the farmer's truck. This is just they didn't care. They're just walking by. They're used to vehicles and stuff being in fields, and they didn't care. It was probably still warm from driving in, even. Imagine you've had some um, interesting practice sessions getting ready for a tournament. What do you do different when you're going for a 3D tournament as rather a target tournament?
So a lot of times I have a little over half of the ASA lineup targets, and I'll try going out and setting them up in our woods out behind the house when I'm getting ready for a 3D tournament, and I'll try going out there every day. And then when I'm getting ready for a target tournament, I'll try shooting a little bit more arrow, get my arrow count higher for a target tournament, a paper target tournament, because I'll end up shooting more arrows, and I'll try blank bailing a little bit more during because target panic or not target panic, but spots that gives me my target panic a little bit. It brings back.
Yeah,
fits of.
yeah, yeah. Once you get a bad case of target panic, and then you're going on, and that's that you get back on those spots, and you think about it, and when you think about it, that's when you start having it again, isn't it?
Yeah, and so when I was struggling with it like really bad, I went to a tournament and it was I think it was a USA archery like Sam shoot, just a state, it might have been the state regional for it. And I was struggling just to hit the target. I mean, I'd just draw back and just want to shoot, just get it off the bow. And I was really struggling with that. So I came home because I had a shoot that next weekend for the USA Archery State shoot. And I came back, took the sight off my bow, and I just went downstairs. I'd be down in our basement for like 3, 4 hours a day because we converted our basement into an archery range. And I would just blank bail. And I blank bailed till probably Wednesday or so. And I put my sight back on just to see if I could execute a good shot after blank bailing the past 3 days. And I did. So I was super excited. And I just went back, I blank bailed again. And then on Thursday, I put my sight on and actually shot a round and blank bailed some more. And then I blank bailed a little bit on Friday morning, took the rest of Friday off just because I had to shoot Saturday. And I went
Yeah.
back Saturday. I shot I broke great shots. My equipment shot great. And I had a really good score. So I went back Sunday because I had to shoot again, and I broke shots, great shots again. And I was shooting super well. And they said something about getting our scorecard signed about maybe being records or something. So I had my scorecard signed, and then we got looking, and I had set the Michigan State record. So we looked, and I had set the national record too. So then we
Oh,
just waited
cool.
for it to uh get approved. And I went from one weekend not even able to break a good shot to setting a national record the next. And it just shows that it's all in how you're breaking your shots, and that it's all just blank belt to help you figure the target panic out and just
Yeah, that shooting that blank bail for those that are listening that don't know, would just take your backstop and no target on it, nothing to aim at. As long as you hit the backstop, that's all you care, and you're
yep,
more focusing on technique instead of hitting a spot. There's no aiming involved because you generally have, depending how big your backstop is, you might have a 4 foot square. As long as you hit on that square, you're good.
yeah,
Um, or a 2 foot square, depending on which target you're shooting at.
yeah.
But as long as you're hitting it, that's all you care.
Yeah, I had a bag target down there, and I went up. I don't know, it was 4, 5 yards, whatever. Just took the sight completely off and just stood there. As long as my peep sight was, I could see the whole bag with in my peep sight. I knew that I was gonna hit. So then after I made sure the bag was inside the peep sight, I just focused on executing a good shot.
Yeah, and shooting those close range, then you don't have to worry as much about missing and trying to,
Yeah,
okay, I got to hit the target. It's like
yeah,
you can't miss. And I've done that. When I was first learning back tension release, they had us like 2 feet. We could shoot an arrow, bend forward, grab the arrow, and pull it out. That's how close we were to the backstop. Shoot with our eyes closed. And we started with our eyes closed. And, they went through and told us, what we're supposed to feel. And until you'd finally feel the good release or what you thought was a good release, open your eyes, then it all went away. Close your eyes, shoot them again. Okay, got it. I think that's a good release. Open your eyes, it goes away. What I started doing was I would have them draw back, eyes closed, finger off the trigger, and I'd have them just aim. That's all I got to do, aim. And so you're not going to pull the trigger. I'm going to pull the trigger. And I'd reach up at some point and I'd pull that trigger. And you know what? Probably 90% of the time they hit the target. Because all I was doing is aiming. It's like
yeah,
that's what a release should feel like. If it doesn't feel like that, you're doing it wrong. And I had to figure out what it was, eventually figure out what it was. That way I kind of, in teaching them, I kind of teach, okay, this is what a good release feels like. So now you know what one feels like. So now when you know when you have one or don't have, if you don't have one, you figure out why you didn't have one. And that kind of makes, eliminate some of that time of figuring out on your own, like going out deer hunting. I had nobody to teach me what to do. When I first started, if I seen a track in the dirt, it was a good day. At least there was deer there. And then it got down and I was like, okay, if I seen a deer, even if it was on the way there or to or from hunting, that was a good day. And then you get a little bit better in front of the better places, and then expect to see them more often. And you just start out not knowing how to even look for trails. And nice when you can have somebody help you. And that's why it's nice to have a coach to help you
Yeah.
through some of those struggles, because it's real hard to analyze your own shooting.
Yeah.
Even if you video it and then play it back, it's still hard to analyze your own video. It's hard to step back from, okay, this is me shooting, to critiquing what this archer is doing. And you know,
Yeah. My first coach that I had, he used to own an archery shop in town where we like our local town. And he I knew who he was, but my dad, he set up appointment for us to go like meet him and for a lesson. And then I just like we started going once a week, then we started going 2 times a week, 3 times a week to his archery range. And he would just coach me. And then we started going down the Demer Center in Lansing. It's about 40-50 minutes from our house. And we met the coach there, Coach Glenn, and he started working with me. And it's a whole he changed so much and made me such. Both of my coaches, Dan Smoke at Smokey's Archery, and my coach Glenn, they both helped me out so much that it's like I could have never done this by myself.
yeah, that is the advantage of having a coach. You can take it to that next level with a whole lot less effort.
Yep.
Money well spent getting a good coach.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely well spent. So who's your coach now?
Coach Glenn Bennett,
Okay.
he at Demer Center, and then every once in a while I'll still go to Dan Smokle house. He was my first coach's house, and he got me a long ways. He yeah, and then we had a party one for my sister's birthday party, and then a party like to celebrate some of my archery tournaments or whatever. And I had both of them there, and they got to meet, and
Oh
they
yeah.
yeah, and that was really cool for him. And now every time we see him or whatever, he's just like, "Hey, house," and then they got to meet a couple times since then too. And
Oh,
that's
that's
cool because
cool.
they just get to talk to each other about their coaching techniques and stuff.
Well, we all have a little bit different way of teaching.
Yeah,
We're all teaching the basic stuff, but you know, I've become an archery instructor in '95, and even before that, I was teaching martial arts, and I did Hapkido, so there's a lot of similarities between the techniques we use in martial arts and archery. And I kind of merged them together to what works best for me. And that's what I teach. And I teach why I'm telling you to do it this way. And then, of
yeah,
course, like everything else, we have to modify. Like you cut your fingers. So we had to modify the way you were doing your release just
yep,
because of the cut you had. And there's all kinds of different things because each person is a little bit different. And that's the key to a good coach that's going to teach you what works best for them and then modify it to work best for you. Uh, you know, whether you're teaching archery or teaching martial arts, you're teaching anything, even in school, taking a course in school, you have one instructor might teach you and you get nothing of what they're saying. The next one teaching the same subject and it's a breeze.
yeah. It's
It's
just
just part of their teaching technique, and you know whether or not your perception of this instructor is good, is bad, good, better, best, elite. Your perception is going to determine what you get out of it, and then how open you are to being coached. And there's there's a lot of them, as somebody's in coaching, you come in and you determine really quick whether or not you're even going to waste your time with the person.
Yeah.
There's a couple little statements you make, and if they're not receptive to it, then it's like you're on your own. I'm not going to bother. I'm not even going to offer, because they're not going to listen anyway,
Yeah.
or they're going to do opposite what you wanted. And I know when I was first learning this, there was a couple people in there that went through this course. They learned all this stuff, and it's like, oh no, I'm going to go back the way I was doing it before.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
you pay all this money to learn a better
you
technique, and
just,
you're not
yeah.
even going to try it after the thing. I
Yeah.
went from shooting a 32-inch draw length bow to a 29 and a half in one day. I went in on a Friday, and my bow is 32, and it's the year 29 and a half. It has to be 29 and a half before you can continue with the next class tomorrow night, which is Saturday night. And so I'm running all day Saturday trying to, get shorter strings, long cables, whatever, to get it adjusted so I get it down to 29 and a half. And I did it. And then it's like, man, this feels short. This feels short. This feels short. But I kept shooting, kept working on technique. And now I shoot 29.
Yeah, and it just takes, and that's another thing is like even when you switch bows or even when you put new strings on a bow or get a new sight, it just takes so much time to get used to it or reacclimated. Or when you take time off, it just takes so much
Right.
time to get reacclimated or get used to it again to be able to,
Yeah, it does. And especially you have one bow for hunting and one bow for, your target shooting.
yeah,
And, they both, both mine were set for 70 pounds, but they do shoot differently for different
exactly. Yeah.
cams. They feel a little different, and uh, actually the hunting bow is actually right faster than the target bow.
Yeah, I mean,
And you can tell because it's harder to let down
yeah.
because it is so much faster. You gotta be careful when you let down because it'll get away from you if you're not careful and you go to
Yeah,
let
and
down.
from switching from even indoor target to 3D or 3D to indoor target, it takes a couple weeks to get re used to that and reacclimated to it.
Yeah. Especially, like a lot of the indoor target, a lot of them, if you're not like in uh, you know, a bow hunter class or something like that, get the long stabilizers, and then you have the counterbalances, and then you have all that. So you have a lot more weight to hold. It's more stable, but you have more weight to hold,
The
and,
lens,
and it's all completely
glasses,
different.
right?
And a lot of, a lot of the guys that I know is shooting, like only 40 pounds for the target bow, real
Yeah,
lightweight, because it doesn't matter how long it takes to get there.
as
It's a
long as
known
it,
distance, 20
yeah,
yards.
yeah.
It's always 20 yards. So you
You're
only need one
shooting,
pin.
yeah, you're shooting the same spot every time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Me, I always thought that was boring, but I shoot a lot of spots, just, develop my shooting stuff, my skill and technique and get that down. And then I do a lot of the 3D shoots because out judging yardage, because I did, the um, unknown yardage is all I ever shot. I never shot a known yardage one, just because I wasn't really interested in those. Uh, but I want to learn to judge yardage so I can, hunt better. And figuring all that out, so in judging yardages and your uphills, downhills, you're walking, and sometimes you got to kind of move around to get over stuff. You got to look at branches in the way. If there's a branch at 10 yards and you get a 30-yard target, where's that branch? Is my 10-yard, is my pin, my 20-yard pin close enough to it to hit it? And then you might have to move a little bit or squat down, or a little bit taller, and just like shooting it when you're hunting.
yeah,
Yeah, I've had some times when I had this one, I shot at this deer, and it loud whack. I said I had to have hit. No, it run off, no blood trail. I found my arrow. There was about an inch and a half diameter tree. I put that muzzy broadhead dead center in that tree. So I cut it down, pull my broadhead back out. It's like, well, I didn't see that little branch in the way.
Yeah, yeah, that little bit of, that little stick or branch, it'll make a big difference on your.
Yeah. I bet you've got a few stories like that too, where you had something that you didn't
Yeah,
see was in the way, and
yeah. I've got lucky a couple times on that stuff, but I at IBO Worlds this past weekend, it was a bedded buck, and we walk up on it, and we're looking, and then we go up to the stake, and we start to judge it, and all of a sudden there's a stick like right where we like right in front of the, so we had to step off, like have a wider stance so we could get around the stick in order to see the 11 ring.
yeah, they probably put it there on purpose, didn't they?
Yeah.
Have you ever had any that put in targets like at 5 feet and close ones like that?
Yeah, we used to see that a lot in like the ASA tournaments. There would normally be a 5, 4, 6, 8 yarder target, and I don't know. There we had one target. I think it was about 6 yards this year, but I think they just figured that everyone was preparing for him now because it used to be like no one was preparing for him. They would just come because they throw you completely off. It's like, oh,
Right.
I need to aim with my 10 pin low. No, you need to aim with your 30 pin high. It all makes it.
Yeah.
So now I have a little notebook that I keep in my quiver that it says at 5 yards, so or whatever. And then we went to one tournament. It was an ASA qualifier this year, and it it was like 2 yards. Like it was closer than like the rangefinder didn't range find it. And the
Right.
best part about it was it was downhill kind of. So and you were standing on a dirt pile. So right here's the target, and you're standing right here at like
Oh,
two
you're being
yards.
more than 45 degrees, aren't you?
Yeah, and so I ended up taking my bubble and aiming at the top of the 10 ring with it. And I ended up catching the bottom side of the lower 12. But it
Oh,
was like a big gap from where I was aiming with my bubble to where I hit.
and the problem comes in the fact that your pins and your peepers at your eye level, but your arrow is down at your mouth. So as
Yeah.
you get closer, it's way low. And
Yeah.
the one I had was a 5 feet. I had used my 70 yard, shoot it for 70 yards, did it at 5 feet. So, you may have to shoot it like for a 90-yard shot. And most of us, if we don't shoot those long ranges, don't have pin set for
Yeah. We're the first time we ever came across a super close target like that. I was shooting with my dad, and it was when we were newer to archery or competitive archery, and
it.
we
Yeah.
looked up on a target on like that, and he says, "You're gonna shoot low." And I was like, "No, I'm not. I'm just gonna aim right where I would want to hit," and I shot like 4 inches low. It it
Yeah.
makes that big of a difference.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the problem. That's why, I think they a lot of them would put them in and
Yeah,
it was, and then I've, some say, well, I just sight down the arrow. Well, have you ever shot sighting down the arrow before? Yeah, no. Well, then I guess you got as good a chance as you do it using your pins, but
yeah,
still one of those that, there's all kinds of things. Normally you don't get that close a shot, but I've had some where the trail was, like 2, 3 feet from the tree stand, and they're walking basically underneath my tree stand. And those are tough to shoot because, one, you're shooting down, you have to almost spine them. And if
yeah,
that don't work, then they're running off with the arrow and hanging out and losing an arrow. And they're just like almost impossible to really shoot a deer that close a range where they're pretty much straight down. Uh, they never follow the rules. I try to set up for 20-yard shots, and they don't like to follow that. They like to come in closer.
yeah. I had last year I was sitting in a stand. It was like mid-afternoon. It was like 2:30 in the afternoon, and I had one. It came out from a brush pile, like 8 yards from me, and I walked right underneath my stand, and I couldn't get a shot off at it. but it was like if it wouldn't have went right underneath my stand, I could have tried. Like it was,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, I had one doe come in one time and it run in and I'm looking at it through the grate of my tree stand. I was like, okay, I think it run into my pole rope and quit. It was one of those early seasons where I heard the doe bleeding and where I was at, the duck hunt. And I just figured it's a duck hunter messing around. So I didn't think nothing of it 'cause I'd never heard a doe do that. And so I got on my grunt and I got on yeah, I completely didn't even do a good call. And not that that was bleeding. The other one, the bigger one, come running right straight my tree stand and stops underneath my tree stand. She knew exactly where the sound was coming from, but she didn't look up. And I'm just looking at this like, okay. At that time in Nebraska, we had two tags. So I'd get two archery tags, which is either sex. And the first one I'd shoot a doe or a buck, whichever come in. And then until December, because ours went from September 15th to December 31st, did shut down in 9 days in November for rifle. But I'd only hunt bucks until December. Then I go ahead and fill my tag. Well, this is after I got my first one before, and it wasn't December, it's still November time frame. And I wasn't shooting does at that time because I only get two, and I didn't want to end so quick of a hunting season. And so I wasn't about to shoot either one of them because it wasn't time to shoot another doe.
yeah,
And I just sit there and watched it. I I had one time I was in tree stand, the one I was telling you about. They could see him walk past my truck in that in over the tracks, and I'm sitting in here and I'm watching this doe comes in with this fawn, and I'm just gonna, small fawn. I'm just gonna let the doe go, let it, a little better chance of growing up. Well, about 10 yards from my tree stand, the fawn lays down, and the doe keeps walking. So I'm sitting here watching this fawn 10 yards from my tree stand, just sitting here watching her come back, and then finally the doe come back, and then the two of them run off. But it's like I wouldn't just shoot that doe anyway. Now, if no one come walking in, that's a different story. But so I sit there and it's like I got a perfect decoy because that fawn's going to tell me when another deer's coming in. Especially from the other direction. I had a little spike buck one time do the same thing, come walking in and give me half a dozen shots at it. And I'm sitting here watching it because I'm not going to shoot a little spike because it's a good decoy. Because he's going to tell me when a big buck comes walking in because all of a sudden he's going to start looking at it. Then come running off. And I knew something's coming in. Yeah.
yeah,
Sometimes you can use the deer that you're not going to shoot as a warning and a decoy.
yeah. I had a deer do that to me last year. Is I was a little 6 point coming in, and he was coming in, and he was a decent sized 6 point, so I was like contemplating shooting him, and so I grabbed my bow, and he saw me, and then all of a sudden I hear another buck or another deer coming in, so I look, and it's just a huge rack 11 point, and so and then I have the 6 point that already saw me, and he's looking at me, so then the big 11 point sees him looking at something. So when he looks, now he's watching me, and he sees me draw back, and I shoot, and he jumped the string and went right over top of his back. But it was just that this small buck was looking at me. So it's like, what's he looking at?
Yeah, you were kind of busted on that one, no matter what you did. Yeah, it's amazing how they're just that little sound from the bows, and they're fairly quiet nowadays.
Yeah,
And they can move so quick to get underneath them, and that's why a lot of times I say, if it's alert, you need to shoot extra low. Like shooting at the bottom of the belly because they're going to drop down, and if they're not alert, you can shoot normal. But it's time to remember, okay, is he going to jump the string or is he not going to jump the string? If I aim too low, then I completely miss. If I don't, then I miss. Yeah, take a shot. You never know.
yeah.
So, what would you say to somebody that's just starting out in archery? What would you recommend they do?
to just start or get a starter bow and starter lease site and just go out, have fun. And it's not gonna, you're not gonna become great overnight. And you're not gonna become what you want to be overnight. So just take time and it you'll you'll get there.
Now, how important would you say it is to have a coach when you're ready to take it to that next level?
I would say it's a pretty important thing to have a coach, even if he's not telling you what to do, just so he can watch you and let you know or something like say, hey, maybe try this. But I would say it's a pretty important thing to
Yeah,
have.
it's um and I agree with that. Of course, being a coach, I have seen how people have progressed, from uh, taking a 6-inch group and taking them down to 3 arrows touching in less than a week.
Yeah.
Just by correcting a few things. And uh,
Yup.
I would say most people are shooting too long a draw length. Uh, I was when I started, and I was at a pro shop, and they said, "Well, draw this back. How's that feel?" I didn't know. So okay, I didn't know any better. I was
Yeah.
leaving it on them, and she said, "Oh, okay, that's it." It's like, okay. So I
Yeah.
shot, you know, 32-inch draw length instead of being 29 and a half or
And it
29 now.
just
So I shot 2.5 inches too long.
yeah,
And
it just takes time to get to where you, especially where you want to be. It takes a lot of time.
yeah, it does. And for those listening, if you're struggling with something, take a video of yourself shooting, and if you're not a member, but join the Arch Talk 101 Facebook group and upload the video. Say, hey, I'm struggling with this. We'll take a look at the video and we'll give you some pointers. There's instructors in there that have been teaching for a long time. We've got archers that have been shooting for 50, 60 years. We've got archers that have been shooting for 50 or 60 days. And we have bow techs in here that have been working on bows for decades. Um, so there's something for everybody in there. Join that group if you're not a member of it. And hey, if you have any questions, just upload them. And once in a while, some of the members will post event um, archery shoots in the group.
Yeah,
So if you're looking for a tournament to go to, do that.
you'll have
Um,
to look at that.
yeah, you won't see any advertisements for anything. Anybody sells products is removed from the group because we're not there to sell products. You get a lot of them will join in, and it's like first thing they do is post, "Hey, I got this T-shirt. Looks cool. Yeah, it looks cool." Delete their comment and ban them from the group. So I don't want to turn into some place that's buying and selling stuff. Um, so it's all just content. The only stupid question is one you haven't asked yet. That's what I always say. If there's something you're not sure of, ask us. Somebody's going to have some answer for you because there's I think like 1,400 people in the group, so there's plenty of people in there that have information, experience with you. If you want to also watch, you can watch the podcast in there as well. I post those in there, as well as you can go out to my YouTube channel, Learn to Fix It Yourself. There I post the video for that. And those who want to listen to the audio part, got Spotify. I upload them to Spotify, and then you get them where else you have other podcasts as well. And if you want to go out to audible.com, you can listen to the podcast. It's free to download. Normally, Audible, you pay for the video, the audios, but this is a free one you can download. You listen to it anytime. A lot of people do that because kind of keeps a new issue comes out, you get them right away.
Yeah.
And when they come out, right
So
now they're coming, each Friday I put one out. Uh, so I may eventually go to 2 a week again. I was at 2 a week, but then I had a triple bypass, so then it kind of took me out of being able to do much. So right now I'm at once a week, every Friday morning. I try to put one out every Friday morning, and that's just there. So those have been listening this far, thanks for listening. I hope you got something out of it, and we'll see you on the next one. And thanks for being on the show, James.
yeah, thank you for having me, Roy.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you later.